bit of this song.
YouTube.
So what we're doing today is we're doing a little bit of a stretch out. Sometimes we like to get out here and see how far we stretch.
Yeah, we always talk about being out west, shooting long distances, being ready to be able to shoot a longer distance than maybe your average 40 yards. Well,
so what do we got? You just ranged it if anybody misses it or if I cut it out.
yeah, so we're at 120.
120. So I'll show you what that kind of looks like through my iPhone, which is awesome. So there we are. Zoom back. That's all right. So you can see that's 120 yards. No awesome grouping going on. I mean, that's. But we're doing a little bit of long distance testing with some broadheads. I don't know if you can see that up on there. That's the Helix from Strickland, and it seemed to fly pretty true from 120. That's pretty good, right?
It's a bit high, but it's looking down the middle. Pretty good for broadhead. I would say at 120.
All right.
Can't ask for much more.
All right, 120 yards. We made it a little bit interesting. I don't know if you can see that. That's pretty creepy. What do you want to make the contest?
First one to knock it off.
First one to knock it off from
a hit.
120.
You'd probably knock it off with a foam hit though.
You think?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's say
First one to hit it.
first true hit.
Yeah.
Let's see. There it is. Oh, it fell off.
It fell off. I don't know. Should we have? I guess we got to go see, huh? Yeah.
So, judges ruled a foam hit, not the cabeza. See if I can zoom in on the La Cabeza. Wow, I gotta hold still. Sound like you got foam.
Got the target. Been trying to do that all day. Finally got it.
All right, still trying.
My arrows are still coated. We're too coated with dirt. That's why.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you hit the. You must have hit the foam. I'm surprised that thing didn't fall off.
Yeah, I think I tacked the bottom of the neck to the foam.
Well, that would help.
Yeah. We'll keep shooting. Keep on keeping on.
Talk a little bit about FOC. Let's get a rant going. We always have these.
Well, we've been warned by Troy Fowler, that is Ranch Ferry.
Ranch Ferry.
He gave us the 90-day warning a while back.
That's right.
Yeah, I
Sure were they
high on the target.
on the target though, huh?
It's on the target. But yeah, so 90-day warning. That was probably a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there that are tired of hearing about heavy arrows.
Heavy setups.
Heavy setups, but you know, if you look into just the physics of it, there's no reason that you wouldn't want a heavy arrow with high FOC. I mean, heavy's good, but you're gonna get better flight with more FOC.
So tell me, what's the weight of the arrow that you're shooting right now?
The weight of this arrow right here is 560 grains, give or take, and give or take a grain. So, and the FOC, I believe we came around about 20%.
20 to 21%.
So,
so the reason why I ask you, and that's the thing people will be asking, is we're shooting 120 yards with 560 to 570 grain arrows.
That's right. And we've tested our bows. You look at some of the other videos that we have out there. We've got some tests, speed tests on our bows with heavy arrows, and that's the whole reason that we've been doing that, is so we could be able to get back here and stretch it out. We don't want to, you know, slow arrows. There's some that will say that an animal will run away because it hears your arrow coming. I don't know that there's a whole lot of truth to that. They're very reactive, they're instinctive. If they hear anything, they're gonna move. Sound travels way faster than you can get your arrow to go. So if you can get an arrow to fly at an acceptable trajectory for you, go as heavy as possible. That's what I say.
All right. End of rant.
Latest discussion posts and or things that I've seen about shooting a slow arrow because it's too heavy. The animal will get out of the way because it's going too slow and they can hear it coming.
It's not the arrow that they hear.
No. Sorry, guy.
I didn't zoom in.
Oh, yeah.
Nailed it, and I totally missed. I didn't zoom in. Send your last arrow, we'll go take a look. Dang.
I did the same thing.
We're big talkers.
Ooh. 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 There it is.
Well, whose arrow is that?
That's your arrow.
My goodness.
That's your arrow.
That's throat punch right there.
Yeah, but I think I hit it and went through right there. Yeah, right. Where is it? There it is, right there. Right in the cheek.
Right in the cheek face.
I think.
Well, there's this guy right here. I don't know how that would have missed.
Yeah, yeah. That's the one too. Or it was that one. I don't know. Maybe I didn't hit it.
Throat punch.
I want to think I should have hit it.
Well, you can think it.
You did though. You tacked it to the top. That's how it didn't fall off.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so he got it. He got it first.
I got lucky.
He pinned it to the target, and then I did actually. My arrow had some rubber all over it, but he got it first.
Poked it right through the throat punch, and then Josh finished him off with a cheek smash.
A cheek smash. Well, anyways, carry on. We were talking about the idea that an animal can outrun your arrow.
Out matrix the arrow.
Yeah, pull a
That's
matrix.
the thing. So, and if you look at most of our content, if you go back through our stuff that we've done, we have a target speed. And that's even with our heavier setups. We want to be at least somewhere between 270 feet per second and 285 with these Victory RIP TKOs. And so far these arrows they've surpassed my expectations. I don't know about you, Josh.
Yeah, they're doing well.
Wise. Everything that I've seen out of these arrows, they've been able to do what we need them to do. I've been running the Ethics. We've both been running the Ethics archery components up front, and I've put several arrows through 1/2-inch plywood, and they've held up pretty dang well. I think I've got one that's got a slight bend in it, but that's as opposed to like some of the other components that we were running. Just about every one would, once it went through something hard like plywood or anything like that, it would end up with some pretty severe bend.
Yeah.
So right now what we're doing, part of this distance shooting, just getting out and shooting, the time before I brought a kudu. This time I brought out this Strickland Helix, and I'm pretty impressed with both the kudu and both this Strickland seem to fly pretty well.
The argument is, and that I've heard against having a heavier arrow, is that your arrow is going slower, and that the time difference from when you let the arrow fly to when it hits the target is significantly more with the heavier arrow, that the animal can get out of the way. So
here's what I'll say, and this is just me thinking out loud that might refute that. And it's kind of like what Ranch Fairy says, Troy Fowler, when he says, when things aren't going right. He talks about animals always being in motion, right?
yeah,
They're never 100% still, and he's probably right. Even if you stop an animal, you do something to get that animal's attention to stop it, there's a good chance that it's gonna be in motion. What he does is he builds an arrow that penetrates even when things don't go 100% right. He talks about that frequently. And so what I'll say is that even if that animal is in motion, you have a heavier setup, there's a greater chance that you're going to recover that animal because it's going to penetrate more. It's going to do the things you need it to do, as long as you account for, all right, well, if this animal's moving, which way is it moving?
yeah,
That's all part of being a hunter, right?
that's right, that's right.
So I don't know if that refutes that argument 100%.
Well, I don't know that you necessarily need to refute it, but I think for people to make an educated decision on their arrow setup and how they want to set their bow and their arrow up together, understand the arguments from both sides.
Well, and then make as an ethical hunter, make that choice, right?
Yeah. So what I'm gonna say is that arrows, the animal's gonna hear your bow go off no matter how quiet a bow you shoot. I don't care how dead in the hand it is and how quiet it is. They're gonna hear it, especially close up. And they're gonna move. They may not move quite as much if your arrow's going faster, but that pump house is right close to some hard bone structure, so it doesn't take much of a movement if you don't have a solid enough, heavy enough setup and
Penetrate that bone.
something that's going to be tough enough to handle that impact. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how fast it's going.
Yeah, you hit a shoulder blade with too light of a setup, a mechanical broadhead. I mean,
You're done.
I'm just gonna say it that way.
Or if you have, say, an animal that's quartering away hard, you're looking at hitting those ribs at a pretty steep angle. If you don't have enough momentum behind your broadhead, you might just glance off,
Yeah.
and maim, or even not even do any damage at all. So anyways,
Enough of a rant.
enough of a rant. Let's get back to shooting.